SaharaTV, my name is Rudolf Okonkwo. This week, the ruling party in Nigeria, the All Progressive Congress, went to Abuja to elect leaders of the National Assembly. Something happened along the way that has left the whole country wondering if the party is ready to govern. Now, joining us to discuss the state of things in Nigeria is Zainab Usman. Ms. Usman is a PhD candidate in international development at Oxford University in the UK. Ms. Usman, welcome to SaharaTV.
Thank you for having me again.
All right. So let's start by finding out from you. How will you describe what happened on Tuesday, June 9th in Abuja?
Well, it was a very interesting day. I'm sure a lot of us were sort of glued to our TV screens or PC screens, just sort of following all the events that led to the election of the new leadership of the National Assembly in the Senate and the House of Representatives. But generally, I think to an extent, it has been blown out of proportion. I think it's just normal politicking in Nigeria. This is how people play politics, right? Because there's just so much at stake. You know, people want to emerge victorious. There are so many interests to balance and so on. So I think it was a fairly normal process within the context of Nigeria.
Now, some have questioned if the process is legitimate. The process that brought about the emergence of Bukola Saraki as the president of the Senate and Yakubu Dogara as the Speaker of the House of Rep. What is your own take about the legitimacy of the process?
Okay, so first of all, given that I'm not a lawyer, and in particular, I'm not even a constitutional expert, I don't know the extent to which I can comment on the legitimacy of the process itself. But the thing is, if it was illegitimate, I'm sure a lot of dust would have been raised. As far as I know, some hours ago, even the APC, the leadership of the APC has sort of now recognized the fact that Senator Saraki and Honorable Dogara have been elected as President and Speaker of the Senate and the House of Representatives, respectively. So, I mean, if it was completely illegitimate, definitely we would have heard of, you know, people going to the court, instituting legal action and things like that. So that's one thing. The second thing is it's very important for us to draw a line really between challenging something constitutionally and the basis of its legality, and also the normal political process, the politicking that takes place. I think very often we tend to conflate the two, and they're very different. You know, good and fine, within the party, they sort of made a resolution that they were going to select certain candidates, or they were going to rally some sort of consensus around two candidates that ended up not emerging as the leaders that were eventually elected. Yes, there were issues there within the party, but really we have to separate the interests of the party from the interests of Nigeria and Nigerians and what the Constitution says. So I think we have to be very careful in that regard. Having said that, it's obviously the cohesion of the ruling party, which is the APC now, is very important, right? It's important that in these early days that it remains united, so that there is a purposeful direction towards governance, because eventually that is what matters the most. You know, all these things about Bukola Saraki or Bola Tinubu or this person and that person, you know, these are just personality politics. Really, they make very little difference to the actual art of governance. And I think eventually that is really what matters for Nigerians. That is why a lot of people put their faith and trust in the APC to give them power, to give them the mandate. And I think that is really what we ought to focus more on.
Yeah, but if you look at what the analysts are saying, someone saying that, oh, what happened was that different power blocks that came together to form the APC, that they were struggling for power. In fact, there's this idea that the whole drama was aimed at diminishing the influence of Bola Tinubu on the APC. If that is the case, was it accomplished? And if not, what was the purpose of the whole split in terms of what happened within the APC?
Okay, so two things there. First of all, the interests and the conflicts between different rival groups and blocs, and then whether this has diminished the power and perhaps the status of Senator Bola Tinubu. So on the first one, certainly, you know, if we recall, the APC really is a coalition of different interests, different groups. So when you're looking at it in terms of different political parties that came together to form the APC, you have fragments of the former ACN from the southwest mostly. You have the CPC, which is mostly from the north. You have the new PDP, you know, with people like Bukola Saraki himself, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, the former 5 governors that left the PDP and joined the APC and so on. And you know, you have these different political parties and interests. So certainly there will come a time, and the time even came and passed in a sense, where you would have to manage these interests and, you know, try and make everyone happy. It is never an easy thing. I don't think it's something that is necessarily unique to Nigeria or to the APC in this regard. But then also importantly, I think we tend to forget that one of the reasons why there was a crisis in the Senate, particularly the Senate leadership selection, was that, you know, in the original calculation of the APC, I think they reserved the Senate presidency to the Southeast. So because no senator emerged from the Southeast, then this sort of put a spanner into the works of their calculations, and it led to a whole lot of dilemmas for a whole lot of people. So that is one thing. The second thing then is whether this has diminished the power
the influence, yeah.
Yeah, the influence. I don't think it has per se. And I don't necessarily think what has happened is a bad thing either. I think, in a sense, coincidentally, it's actually okay. And this is my reason why. Bola Tinubu, I think, will remain influential in Nigeria for a very long time. That is the reality that people have to understand and accept. Having said that, it's also important for power not to be concentrated in any one individual, because eventually we want to build institutions in Nigeria. I think institutions are more enduring than the influence of personalities and the influence of individuals. So I think even for his own good, Bola Tinubu, that is, it is good that in a sense this happened, because it means there's a check on power, not just on him, but also on the president himself, President Buhari. For me, I just see it that no one individual then has complete domination and control of the APC. And this is a good thing for Nigeria, because if you look at the history of Nigeria, a lot of the political crises we have had in the past have resulted from one person trying to monopolize and dominate everything, and then probably his ethnic group or his region or his cronies and so on rally around him and give him all this sycophantic support, and then it creates problems for us. So it's very good that power is not concentrated in any one individual, in a sense. So I think it's good for everyone ultimately. But Bola Tinubu will remain influential.
Now, let me ask you in terms of the spread of power in Nigeria. If Tinubu's candidate had won, you would have had someone from Lagos being the vice president and someone from Lagos being the Speaker of the House of Rep.
Yeah.
Now, looking at what happened now, so you have the president coming from the north, you have the Senate president from the north, you have the Speaker of the House from the north. So when people bring up the issue that it's still not balanced, how it turned out, what do you say to people like that?
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, these cleavages in Nigeria are very tricky, right? It's all good and fine to say the president, the Senate president, and the speaker are all from the north. But to be fair, they're not all from one region in the north. Nigeria is not divided constitutionally into the north and the south. 6 geopolitical regions are recognized. 3 in the north, northeast, northwest, north central, and 3 in the south, southeast, south-south, and southwest. So the president is from the northwest, the vice president is from the southwest, the Senate president is from the north central, that is the middle belt, the speaker is from the northeast. And I think one other very good thing that has been overlooked, and I think some of the very core APC members have, I think, given it a very different coloration, is the fact that the deputy Senate president is from the southeast and is from the PDP. And I think that is a very good thing, which for me is actually why I'm a bit happy that what happened sort of happened the way it did.
But yeah, I got that. But do you support David Mark being the majority leader when he's from PDP? How did that happen?
But is he the majority leader?
That's what I saw in some papers. How did that happen, if that is the case?
Yeah, okay. I'm not very informed on that. I think I'll have to check that as well. But I think I saw somewhere as well that he's the minority leader.
Okay, that's what it should be. Okay. All right. Maybe we can cross-check that.
Yeah, we have to both cross-check that.
Okay.
Yeah, so the point I'm making is that, to be fair, we can't just say, all these positions are in the north, because these are different parts of the north. And even if you're looking at it in terms of ethnicity, Buhari is Fulani or Hausa Fulani or whatever you want to, whatever terminology you want to use, or core north, or and so on. The Senate president is, he's mostly Yoruba. Some would say he even has Fulani ancestry. I haven't done the research on his family roots. The speaker is from the northeast. He's definitely not Hausa. He's not Fulani. He's one of the quote-unquote minority ethnic groups from, I think it's Bauchi. Is it Bauchi or Gombe? The states there. So, we have to be very careful with the way we sort of make these north-south dichotomies, because sometimes they really do not represent the situation. And then one other thing is also, if you're looking at it in terms of religious representation, I think it's almost balanced. President is a Muslim, vice president is Christian, Senate president is Muslim, Speaker is Christian. He's from the northeast, but he's Christian. Deputy Senate President is Christian. So it seems to be fairly balanced. Obviously, someone will always accuse someone else of marginalization and so on, and that is normal in Nigeria. But I think if the majority are happy, then that is a solid foundation on which to sort of proceed with the real task of governance.
Okay, let's go to governance. And it's been 2 weeks since President Buhari came into power. How will you rate his performance so far?
Okay, so that is a bit tricky. In some respects, I would say he's doing okay. So I think what he's facing is that there are lots of expectations, and there are also lots of problems. I mean, Nigeria has been through a lot, not just within the last 5-6 years of Goodluck Jonathan's administration. I'm not just limiting it to that, but really, if you look at the history of the country, we've just been through so much. So people are very anxious. People now are they're also very confident, especially because people now feel for the first time votes count or votes have counted. People feel entitled to Buhari's presidency. I mean, in my how many years on this earth, I've never seen Nigerians this entitled. You know, people feel we placed Buhari there, so he has to do this and that and that, right?
Yes.
So there's that entitlement. That's one thing. The second thing is I don't think his media team is doing a good job at all. I mean, they did a fantastic job before the elections, but since he was sworn in, I don't think they're doing a good job at all. And this is why. So, you know, there's a lot of anxiety because he is yet to announce some of his principal aides, such as the
Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff, the SGF, although I wouldn't call the SGF an aide. So, but he hasn't announced or he hasn't appointed these key officials. Let's call them officials, not aides. He also hasn't released a tentative cabinet list. So people are very, very anxious. But to be very honest, I think, you know, this is probably the best way to go about it. Because appointments in Nigeria are usually that point in time when many leaders, many presidents get it wrong and get into trouble, get into hot water. You end up probably appointing people you know, not because you want to be, not necessarily because you want to be nepotistic or you want to do some sort of favoritism, but maybe because these are the people that you have access to at that particular point in time, and they might not be the most qualified. You also have to think about regional and ethnic balancing. What if all the qualified people end up being maybe from the southwest or from the southeast?
Yeah, but let me stop you a little bit. But because people are saying that he had 40 days since his election to do this, and they promised to hit the ground running, and it seemed as if everything is stalled.
No, absolutely, and that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I mean, I am also a bit anxious. But again, like I said, I think a lot of the blame should also be placed on his media team. I think they should carry Nigerians along. They should explain why it's taking so long. I mean, I've heard from several sources that part of the reason is because they've been waiting to receive the report from the transition team or the transition committee. And the committee has been delayed for a number of reasons. People give all sorts of reasons. I don't want to go into that. So I think it is then their responsibility to say, okay, we're taking this long because we've been waiting to receive this report so that we can really know the true situation of things, so that we can then proceed to appoint the right kind of people to be able to manage these things. But they're not saying anything. Everyone is quiet. So I think that is really problematic. And in a climate where you have a lot of expectations from people, people feel entitled, and then there's massive social media activity. You know, there's a lot of information now, and people feel they want to get information instantaneously, not like 5, 10, 15 years ago. You know, you have to carry people along. And this is actually one of the failures of Goodluck Jonathan as well. So I think they really have to be up and doing in that regard. But other than that, when you look at things like, especially the Boko Haram insurgency, I think Buhari has made significant strides. I mean, his first official visit was to Niger, and he's been very active in terms of sort of coordinating the multinational joint task force. So, I mean, they really have to be up and doing in terms of, you know, informing Nigerians about what exactly they're doing.
All right. I have to stop here. We are totally out of time. Thank you so much, Ms. Usman. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. That has been Zainab Usman, who is a PhD candidate at Oxford University. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the state of the nation, 2 weeks after General Buhari became the president of Nigeria. Stay tuned.